Welcome to our deep dive into the world of mindfulness and non-judgmental awareness. We're going to explore how to better navigate our internal landscape,
Yeah.
and we've got some cool sources to
Right.
help us through this. We've got articles from mindful.org and the Harvard Stress and Development Lab,
Oh, yeah.
and this other excerpt on becoming like a humble observer.
Sounds fascinating.
So get ready for some practical techniques, expert insights, and maybe even, a whole new perspective on things.
Yeah, it's all about like understanding that power of the present moment and how to harness it, for a more fulfilling life.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
you know? Starting with the basics, like how do our sources actually define mindfulness? It seems like everyone's like throwing that word around lately.
Yeah, totally. They kind of describe it as like paying attention to the present moment without like judging,
Yeah.
you know, accepting thoughts and feelings as they are.
Mm.
Instead of labeling experiences as good or bad, it's more about just observing them,
Mm.
with curiosity and openness.
So it's like hitting pause on that inner critic we all have in our heads, just
Sure.
noticing what we're experiencing without that constant like commentary running in the background.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see how that would be helpful.
Yeah.
But how does that translate to tangible benefits? Like how does that actually help us in our daily lives?
Well, think of it like this. It kind of rewires your brain's threat response system.
Right.
So like by observing your thoughts and feelings without judging them, you weaken their grip on you.
Hmm.
And that leads to less stress, more emotional stability, and the ability to choose how you react instead of just like reacting impulsively.
Hmm. That
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So instead of like getting swept away by a stressful situation, you're able to just kind of observe it with a sense of detachment.
exactly. Mindfulness really helps us to create that space between a stimulus and our reaction.
Yeah.
you know and this space allows us to regulate our emotions more effectively and choose actions that are like aligned with our
I
values.
love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
Speaking of reactions, there's this idea in the Humble Observer excerpt that really resonated with me.
And
It's the idea that it's not the event itself, but like our reaction to it that shapes our whole experience.
right.
How does non-judgmental awareness tie into that?
Oh, that's such a crucial point. Oftentimes, like, our reactions are based on past experiences and thought patterns.
Mhm.
We might like automatically label a situation as bad or threatening just because it reminds us of something negative from our past.
Right. Oh,
And mindfulness helps us to recognize these automatic judgments and to choose like a different response.
so basically, mindfulness is about like always being happy and positive all the time.
Not necessarily. It's more about like accepting all of our emotions, even the difficult ones, without letting them control us.
Okay.
It's about, creating that space to choose how we respond
Mm.
rather than just reacting automatically. And that ability to choose can be really empowering.
That's a really helpful distinction, I think.
Yeah.
It's not about denying or suppressing negative emotions. Right.
But it's about acknowledging them without being like completely swept away by them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how this could lead to greater resilience too.
Yeah.
Like the ability to bounce back from challenges.
For sure. For sure. Resilience isn't about avoiding difficult experiences, it's about moving through them with awareness
Yes.
and skillfulness.
I like that.
Mindfulness gives us the tools to do just that.
Okay, so we've kind of established like the why behind mindfulness
Right.
and this idea of non-judgmental awareness.
Yes.
But how do we actually like cultivate these skills?
Yeah.
Where do we begin?
Both mindful.org and the Harvard Stress and Development Lab
Okay.
offer some really great resources.
Yeah.
Mindful.org, for example, they have this 15-minute guided meditation
Okay.
that's specifically for non-judgmental awareness.
Yes, I saw that in the materials.
Yeah, it's great.
What struck me was that it doesn't like shy away from the hard stuff.
Yeah. It like guides you through confronting those uncomfortable aspects of yourself,
Right.
but it does it with a gentle approach.
For sure. It's a very powerful practice. It encourages you to like sit with discomfort
Mm-hmm.
and acknowledge those challenging aspects of yourself without judgment
Right.
and ultimately cultivate self-compassion.
I love that.
Yeah. You can find the full audio meditation on their website
Okay.
if you're interested.
Great. And for those who maybe are newer to meditation
Yeah.
or are looking for shorter practices, what does the Harvard source suggest?
They actually provide a bunch of links to different resources,
Okay.
including brief meditations from apps like Headspace
Okay.
and Daily Calm. And they even have some yoga and meditation videos on YouTube.
Great.
Yeah. It's great to have those options.
I love that they're catering to different learning styles and time constraints.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, I think it's important to connect all of this to the bigger picture,
Okay.
you know? How does cultivating non-judgmental awareness actually like impact our daily lives?
That's a great question. Let's take the example of stress and anxiety.
Okay.
Oftentimes we get caught in this cycle of negative thoughts,
Yeah.
and that just fuels those feelings even more.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mindfulness allows us to observe those thoughts
Hmm.
without getting carried away by them.
Right.
And that can break the cycle
Okay.
and lead to a sense of calm and clarity.
That makes sense. It's like you're creating space between you and your thoughts so they don't have as much power over you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that sense of spaciousness can extend to our relationships as well.
Okay.
By cultivating non-judgmental awareness, we're able to see others and ourselves
Yeah.
with more understanding and compassion.
Yeah.
We're less likely to jump to conclusions or get defensive,
Right.
and more likely to approach situations with empathy and kindness.
It's about like accepting people for who they are,
Yeah.
flaws and
And we
all,
got flaws.
rather than trying to like change them,
Yeah.
which I imagine creates a foundation for stronger, more authentic connections with people. Yeah.
For sure. And that same open, accepting attitude can benefit our decision-making too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
When we're less reactive and more aware of our thoughts and feelings,
Right.
we can respond to situations thoughtfully rather than just impulsively.
Absolutely.
So instead of making decisions out of fear
Yeah.
or anger, we can step back,
Right.
assess the situation,
Mm,
and make choices that are in line with our values and long-term goals.
exactly.
This is starting to paint a really compelling picture
Yeah,
of how powerful this practice can be.
for sure.
But I'm curious, what are some of the specific techniques
Yeah.
that are mentioned in the Harvard source for actually developing this non-judgmental awareness? I'm ready to kind of dive a little deeper into the how of it all.
Okay, great. They highlight these two key practices: focused attention and open monitoring.
Okay.
Focused attention is when you choose an object to focus on, like your breath or a mantra or physical sensation, and then you just gently redirect your attention back to that object whenever your mind wanders. Okay, so it's like building that mental muscle to stay present, even when there are distractions.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that tie into what the mindful.org article talks about, like sitting with what is rather than what if? I feel like I'm always caught up in thoughts about the past,
Yeah.
or I'm worried about the future. You know?
Absolutely. That's the essence of focused attention, anchoring yourself in the present moment.
Yeah.
We spend so much energy on what ifs and replays of the past that we miss out on, what's happening right now.
That really resonates with me, yeah. But the article also mentions how, we can get caught up in fear and disappointment and self-criticism throughout the day.
Yeah.
How does mindfulness help us deal with those, difficult emotions? It's not like we can just ignore them, right?
Right. And mindfulness isn't about ignoring or suppressing emotions.
Okay.
It encourages acknowledging them without judgment.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that it's okay to feel what we're feeling,
Yeah.
even if it's unpleasant. The key is to observe those feelings with curiosity rather than getting, swept away by them.
So instead of, trying to force myself to be happy all the time,
Right.
it's more about accepting the full spectrum of human emotion, even,
Interesting.
the messy ones.
Yes.
That feels a lot more realistic and, honestly, a lot kinder to myself.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Self-compassion is so crucial, It's about giving ourselves permission to feel exactly what we feel, even when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And this allows us to move through those emotions
Okay.
without getting, stuck.
It's like creating that space we were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
Only this time it's between, the feeling itself and our reaction to it.
exactly.
And isn't there a risk of just becoming, passive observers of our lives
Yeah,
if we're not actively trying to change things we don't like?
that's a great question. Non-judgmental awareness doesn't mean passivity.
Okay.
It's about choosing our responses skillfully.
Okay.
It's a practice, not a destination. We won't be perfectly non-judgmental all the time.
Right.
There'll be moments when we slip back into those old patterns,
Yeah.
of judgment and self-criticism.
Yeah.
The key is to notice those moments without judging ourselves for it,
Right.
and to gently redirect our attention back to the present.
So it's that gentle redirection.
Exactly.
Not forceful suppression
Yeah.
that keeps us moving forward.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm seeing a theme of self-compassion kind of emerge here,
Yeah,
which feels very different from the tough love approach
Right.
that I'm kind of used to.
exactly.
Okay.
Now, shifting gears a bit,
Okay.
the humble observer excerpt talks about how we often attach these value judgments to experiences based on our past, you know? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. Let's say you had a negative experience where you were like publicly criticized for a mistake you made at work.
Okay.
The next time you're in a similar situation where you have to present an idea, you might automatically judge it as dangerous or risky
Yeah.
based on that past experience.
And that judgment, even if it's like subconscious,
Right.
can trigger a whole cascade of negative thoughts and emotions.
Yeah.
And it might lead you to not speak up at all, even if you have a brilliant idea.
Right.
You know, our brains like to create shortcuts.
Right.
And those past negative experiences can lead us to automatically label those similar situations as threatening,
Yeah.
even if they're not.
So it's like our past is holding us back without us even realizing it.
Exactly.
Okay, so how does being a humble observer
Yeah.
help us break free from those patterns?
When we become humble observers, we start to recognize that those judgments are just thoughts, not facts.
Okay.
You know, we create that space to question those assumptions
Yeah.
and choose a different response.
Okay.
It's about like observing those automatic thoughts, like this is going to go terribly,
Yeah.
and acknowledging them
Yeah.
without letting them dictate our actions.
So instead of thinking this presentation is going to be a disaster,
Right.
you might think, I'm feeling anxious about this presentation because of what happened last time,
Yeah.
but I'm going to try to stay present
Right.
and see what happens.
It's like taking back control of the narrative.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah,
It's empowering.
for sure.
And that shift in perspective can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
It's not about pretending like the anxiety isn't there.
Right.
It's about acknowledging it
Yeah.
and choosing to like move forward anyway.
Yes. That's where the true courage and resilience are.
So we're moving from reactive mode
Yes.
to responsive mode,
Exactly.
which feels so much better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it feels good.
Yeah.
The excerpt also emphasizes that like this shift allows us to respond in a healthy way.
Right.
What does that look like practically speaking?
It means pausing before we react, taking a breath,
Yeah.
considering our options.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's that space between stimulus and reaction again.
Yeah.
Instead of letting our emotions just dictate our actions,
Right.
we respond intentionally and with clarity.
So it's about making choices that are like aligned with our values
Yes.
instead of just like reacting to whatever is happening around us.
Exactly.
So it's about responding thoughtfully, not
Yes.
like reacting on autopilot.
Yes. I love that. I think that ties back to that emotional regulation we talked about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
This ability to respond rather than react is crucial for like building healthy relationships,
Mm-hmm.
making good decisions, and navigating those challenges that life throws at us,
Right.
you know, with grace and resilience.
It sounds like cultivating non-judgmental awareness is really about rewiring our brains to create a more peaceful and fulfilling experience of life.
You got it.
It's about like becoming more conscious and intentional
Yeah.
in everything we do.
Exactly. It's about training our minds to be present,
Yeah.
compassionate, and responsive rather than, you know, reactive and judgmental. And, you know, it's about recognizing that this is a journey, not a destination.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be ups and downs.
Yeah.
But with practice, we can really develop these skills and transform our relationship with ourselves and the world around us.
Speaking of practice, I'm eager to like delve into those specific techniques
Yeah.
mentioned in our sources
Okay.
for cultivating this non-judgmental awareness.
Sure.
What are some things our listeners can try like on their own?
Well, the Harvard source, as we mentioned, suggested either focused attention or open monitoring meditation.
Okay.
We've already kind of talked about focused attention.
Right.
Choosing something to focus on and gently guiding your attention back when it wanders.
Yeah.
What's cool about open monitoring is that it expands your awareness to include all aspects of your experience,
Mhm.
your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations,
Yeah.
even the sounds and sights around you.
So instead of like narrowing your in focused attention,
Right.
you're actually expanding it to encompass everything that's happening,
Exactly.
both internally and externally.
Yes. And the key is to just observe these different aspects of your experience without judgment.
Okay.
You're just noticing what's present
Mm-hmm.
without getting, you know, carried away by it.
Right.
It's like becoming a curious scientist, just observing your own mind.
That sounds like really powerful. It's like instead of getting like caught up in one specific thought or feeling,
Right.
you're able to kind of see the bigger picture.
Yeah, and it can be really helpful for dealing with those difficult emotions or challenging situations.
Okay.
Instead of resisting or suppressing those experiences, we learn to just acknowledge them with
Mm-hmm.
openness and curiosity.
So we're not trying to, like, fight those thoughts or pretend they're not there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more about, like, creating space for them to exist without letting them define us.
Precisely. Now, the mindful.org article offers this specific meditation practice for cultivating non-judgmental awareness that we mentioned earlier.
Yes.
It involves bringing to mind something you don't like about yourself. It's something uncomfortable, but not overwhelming.
We touched on this a little bit before,
Yeah.
but I'd love to hear more about the specific steps involved. It sounds like a little daunting to, like, intentionally focus on something we dislike about ourselves.
It can feel counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but that's where the real growth happens.
Okay.
The practice starts with finding a comfortable seated position
Okay.
and focusing on your breath for a few minutes, anchoring you in the present moment.
Okay.
Then you bring to mind that challenging aspect of yourself
Yeah.
and just notice what arises, the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations, without judgment.
So it's about bringing compassion
Yes.
and curiosity to those parts of ourselves that we often, like, reject or criticize.
Or
We're not trying to fix it or make it go away.
Right.
We're simply acknowledging it
Yes.
with kindness and understanding.
You got it. And remember, if the practice becomes too intense,
Yeah.
you can always take a break and come back to it when you're ready.
Right. Self-compassion is key throughout this process. What happens next in the practice?
After you bring that challenging aspect to mind, you just enter a longer period of silence,
Okay.
sustaining awareness of whatever arises.
Mm-hmm.
Without needing to fix or change anything.
Right.
You're just being present with your experience,
Yes.
even if it's unpleasant or challenging.
Yeah.
This helps build your capacity to just be with discomfort
All right.
without reacting or running away.
It's like you're building that muscle of acceptance and non-reactivity.
Exactly.
And I imagine that takes practice.
It does. But the rewards are huge.
Yeah.
Then for the last few minutes, you shift your focus to self-compassion.
Okay, that sounds lovely.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, the article suggests focusing on your in-breath and acknowledging that this is a challenge for you right now
Mm-hmm.
and that all people face challenges,
Yeah.
It's a reminder that you're not alone in your struggles.
That's so important.
Yeah.
Recognizing that everyone faces difficulties. Yes.
And we don't have to pretend like we have it all figured out.
Right.
It just takes the pressure off.
Exactly. And then on each out-breath,
Yeah.
you wish yourself the same happiness and wellness that you'd wish for your best friend.
I love that. It's like extending that same compassion we practice towards
It-
others
yeah.
to ourselves.
Yes.
It's like a tangible way to cultivate self-love and acceptance.
Beautifully put. The article even suggests repeating a phrase like, "May I find strength and happiness in the face of adversity today."
Oh, I like that.
It's a really powerful affirmation.
Yeah, it's a reminder that we have the inner resources to deal with whatever challenges come our way.
Exactly.
So you start by grounding yourself in the breath.
Yeah.
Confront a challenging aspect of yourself with compassion.
Right.
Just be present with your experience.
Yeah.
And end by showering yourself with love and kindness.
That's it.
It's a beautiful practice.
Yeah.
And the article encourages us to set an intention
Yes.
to move forward with both acceptance and resolve. Exactly. Acceptance of what is,
Mm-hmm.
both the light and the shadow within us,
Yeah.
and the resolve to keep practicing and growing.
I like that.
It's about recognizing that we're all works in progress,
Yeah.
perfectly imperfect.
That's a beautiful reminder.
Yeah.
This has been so insightful.
Okay.
But before we get too carried away,
Yeah.
let's move on to the next part of our deep dive.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, we've explored these practices
Yeah.
in a somewhat theoretical sense,
Right.
but I'm ready to get into the practicalities of how we can actually weave all of this into our everyday lives.
Okay, I'm with you. Stay tuned as we explore how to make mindfulness and non-judgmental awareness a tangible part of our everyday lives.
Oh, welcome back to our deep dive into mindfulness and non-judgmental awareness. So we've explored the power of these practices,
Yeah.
but like I was saying before the break, I'm ready to move from the conceptual to the concrete.
Okay.
How can we actually weave mindfulness into our daily lives? It's not like we can all just go live in a monastery
Yeah.
and meditate 24/7.
True. But the beauty of mindfulness is that it doesn't require you to change your whole life.
Right.
It's about bringing that same awareness to whatever you're already doing.
So it's not about adding more to our already packed schedules.
Right.
But it's more about shifting our approach to what we're already doing.
Exactly.
I like that. What are some simple ways to be more mindful
Yeah.
throughout the day?
One of the simplest practices is mindful breathing.
Okay.
You don't need any special equipment or a quiet room.
Right.
Just take a few moments throughout the day to notice your breath,
Okay.
the rise and fall of your chest, the coolness of the air as you inhale, the warmth as you exhale.
So like when I'm waiting in line at the grocery store
Exactly.
or stuck in traffic or
Yes.
even just sitting at my desk
Yeah.
feeling overwhelmed.
For sure, those little pauses can be really powerful.
Yeah.
Just a few conscious breaths can help you reset and reconnect with your body
Mm-hmm.
and shift out of that autopilot mode.
That's great. I'm already feeling calmer just like thinking about it.
Good, good.
I remember the mindful.org article also talked about like simply observing our thoughts and sensations
Yeah.
without like reacting to them.
Right.
Is that another way to practice non-judgmental awareness
Okay.
in our daily lives?
Yeah, it's about creating that space
Yeah.
between the thought or feeling
Yeah.
and your reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of getting caught up in the storyline like, this is terrible,
Right.
I can't believe this is happening,
Yeah.
you simply observe it
Mm-hmm.
with a sense of curiosity.
So if I'm like feeling stressed about a work deadline,
Okay.
I might notice the thought like, I'm never going to get this done.
Right.
But instead of panicking, I can acknowledge the thought
Yeah.
and then like gently redirect my attention back to the task at hand.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You're not trying to make the thought disappear, but you're acknowledging it
Right.
and then choosing how you want to respond.
This ties back to that whole concept of responding rather than reacting.
Exactly.
Right. We're not letting our emotions like control our actions.
Right.
We're making conscious choices
Yeah.
based on our values.
And it can be so helpful in breaking free from those negative thought patterns. you know?
Yes, absolutely.
The ones that we all get stuck in sometimes.
You might notice yourself like feeling judgmental towards someone.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, they're so inconsiderate or whatever.
Right.
But instead of letting that judgment like solidify,
Yeah.
you can simply observe it,
Yeah.
acknowledge it,
Mm.
and choose to respond with like more understanding.
I love that.
So we can practice mindfulness in our interactions with others,
Yes.
not just when we're like alone with our own thoughts.
Exactly. It's about bringing that same awareness and non-judgment
Mm.
to all areas of our lives.
What about relationships? How does non-judgmental awareness play out in that area?
Well, our sources suggest that it can help us to see others
Okay.
and ourselves with more understanding and compassion.
Right.
It's about recognizing that everyone is doing the best they can
Mm-hmm.
with the resources they have.
So instead of like jumping to conclusions
Right.
or getting defensive,
Yeah.
when someone does something that bothers us,
Yeah.
we can take a moment to really listen
Yeah.
and try to like understand their perspective.
Exactly. Put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, like, what might be going on for them that's leading them to behave this way?
Right.
And we also extend that same compassion to ourselves,
Yeah.
recognizing that we all make mistakes.
Right.
And we try to approach those situations with, kindness and understanding rather than self-criticism.
It's about letting go of that need to be right all the time
Yeah,
and focusing on connection and empathy.
exactly.
It's about understanding rather than judging.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
And that shift can make such a big difference
Yeah.
in the quality of our relationships.
Absolutely. Thinking back to the humble observer idea, it seems like that perspective could be really helpful in navigating conflict.
Oh, for sure. Instead of getting caught up in the drama and escalating the situation,
Yeah.
you can step back and observe
Mm-hmm.
with more objectivity.
Yeah.
You become like an observer of the conflict
Right.
rather than a participant in it.
So, for example, if I'm having like an argument with my partner,
Okay.
I might notice the anger rising within me,
Yeah.
but instead of lashing out, I could like take a breath
Yes.
and try to understand what's really going on beneath the surface.
And you can also try to see the situation from your partner's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
What are they feeling? What are their needs?
Yeah.
It's not about figuring out who's right or wrong.
Right.
It's about understanding those underlying needs and emotions
Yeah.
that are driving the conflict.
It's about moving beyond blame and judgment and seeking understanding. It's about recognizing that we're both on the same team,
I love that.
even if it doesn't feel like it at the moment.
Exactly. And that understanding opens the door to resolution
Yeah.
and connection.
I think so, yeah.
It allows you to address the underlying issues rather than just arguing about the surface level stuff.
This has been so insightful.
Good.
It feels like we've covered so much,
Yeah.
from the neurological stuff to practical tips
Well, yeah.
for integrating mindfulness into our lives.
It's important to remember that cultivating this non-judgmental awareness is an ongoing journey.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something we achieve overnight.
Right.
It's a practice. And like any skill, it takes time and effort to develop.
There are going to be times when we fall back into old patterns,
Right.
but it's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about noticing those moments
Okay.
and gently redirecting ourselves back to the present.
Exactly. It's about progress, not perfection.
Yes.
And there are things we can do to support ourselves
Mm-hmm.
on this journey and make mindfulness a more sustainable part of our lives.
So how do we stay motivated
Yeah.
and committed to this practice? What are some tips for making mindfulness a habit
Yeah.
rather than a chore?
One of the most important things is to start small.
Okay.
You don't have to change your whole life overnight.
Right.
It's about incorporating small, manageable practices
Okay.
into your routine.
So maybe I start with just like 5 minutes of mindful breathing each morning, or
Yeah.
I commit to practicing non-judgmental awareness
Right.
during one meal each day.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you
Yeah.
and gradually building from there.
Okay.
It can also be helpful to find a community of
Mhm.
like-minded people who can support your journey.
Whether it's like a meditation group
Yeah.
or a yoga class or even just a friend who's interested,
Yeah. I mean,
exploring this stuff.
having that support system can make a big difference.
It can.
And it can also be helpful to remind yourself of the benefits you're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
As you practice mindfulness,
Okay.
take note of the positive changes you're noticing.
Yeah.
Less stress, more emotional stability, improved relationships,
Yeah.
better focus.
Yeah.
These things can help you stay motivated.
It's like anything else.
Yeah.
The more we practice, the more we benefit,
Exactly.
the more motivated we are to keep going.
For sure.
Well, I think we've covered a lot today.
We have.
We've explored the concepts of mindfulness and non-judgmental awareness.
Yes.
We've delved into those practical techniques and even how to make these practices a more sustainable part of our lives.
I hope our listeners are feeling inspired
Me too.
to embark on their own mindfulness journeys.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a path that can lead to greater peace, clarity, and connection
Yes.
in all areas of your life.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with that thought-provoking question from the Humble Observer excerpt. How might approaching life as a humble observer change your perspective on challenges and opportunities?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's a powerful invitation to kind of shift our perspective and see the world with fresh eyes,
It is, because when we shift our perspective, we open ourselves up to a whole new way of experiencing the world.
Yes.
A world filled with possibilities
I love
and opportunities for growth.
To our listeners, we encourage you to revisit those sources we talked about today.
Yeah.
Try the practices
Mm-hmm.
and continue exploring the world of mindfulness.
Yeah, it's a journey that can lead to a richer, more fulfilling, and more meaningful life.
And we'll be here to support you every step of the way.
We will.
Until next time.
Keep exploring.